I mean, he works his ass off. The guy can fight. He's a world champion, but just because you can fight and just because, like, it doesn't really mean, like, doesn't make you like a man, and there's these moments when, like, you see kind of like past, hey, I could fight, he works his ass off like Costa.
So Sean Strickland's been running this massive public campaign, right? Just absolutely going all out, calling for his shot at Khamzat Chimaev, basically demanding this fight needs to happen. But here's the crazy part about how Khamzat responded. He didn't get pulled into some huge social media war with Sean. What happened instead was way more interesting. Almost right after Sean ramped up his callouts, training clips started dropping everywhere, showing Khamzat just destroying himself in the gym, putting in these insane workout sessions that looked brutal. This obviously got everyone talking and spreading rumors about a possible fight at the UFC, which would be absolutely massive and exactly what fans want to see. But here's what's wild about it. Khamzat hasn't been doing much talking back at all. He just went straight into training mode and started preparing like this championship fight isn't just some maybe situation, but like it's already locked in and happening soon. That kind of silent, laser-focused preparation says way more than any trash talk could.
With Sean Strickland, he's been saying some stuff in interviews about, he just didn't like your approach. Just why do you think he's saying that, and do you have a response?
I don't know, when I was there, they never said anything, When I leave the Vegas and when I stop my visa, he started to talk. When I come back, I'm in LA, bro. Come on. If it's something personal for you, just come. I'm here whenever you want.
Okay. When it comes to how Khamzat actually responds to Sean's constant social media attacks and callouts, like when Sean called him weak or said there's zero chance Khamzat would actually step up and fight him, here's exactly what went down. Khamzat came back with a straight-up no-games challenge to Sean. He told Strickland to just chill out and wait until his messy visa situation gets completely handled and cleared up, and then when all that legal stuff is sorted, they'll have their conversation. But they won't be talking with words or Twitter posts. They'll be talking with their fists right there in the octagon, where it counts, exactly how two world-class fighters who both think they're number one should handle business.
Sean Strickland next. Guys, there's no debate. I had 24 hours to think about this. Because here's what I don't want to do. I got to tell you, as an authority figure in this sport, I don't want to pan Imanov. I don't want to do that. I respect him. I respect what he's done. I respect his patience. But Sean Strickland fought him in head-to-head competition. Now, a couple of things came out. I am behind the scenes, and I can tell you, guys tiptoe around Chimaev. Guys are scared of Chimaev. He has a presence. Sean Strickland said, man, I used to be in the gym with this guy. He's a punk. Ask the people that were there. Sean Strickland said, when I come into a gym, I go find the biggest, baddest dude, and that's who I spar with. When Chimaev comes in the gym, he finds the...
Now get this. Someone said he's the softest fight out there. Chael Sonnen, who always breaks things down perfectly, even mentioned that he took a whole day just thinking about this matchup from every possible angle, making sure his take wasn't influenced by anyone's personal connections or behind-the-scenes politics in the fight world. Chael also talked about these really fascinating reactions and changes he's noticed in other fighters when Khamzat's actually in the room with them. He said Khamzat has this undeniable presence that just naturally makes everyone pay attention and show respect. Chael brought up some interesting comments that came straight from Sean Strickland about their past training sessions together. Sean had said, and this was a direct shot at Khamzat's mindset, that when he trains, he always goes after the toughest guys possible, always looking for the hardest, most brutal sparring he can get, while painting Khamzat as someone who'd rather take easier, lighter rounds where he's not really being pushed. This is basically a public attack on Khamzat's supposed toughness, and it's coming from someone who's known throughout MMA for his absolutely savage approach to both training and fighting.
You're disrespecting everything that Fluffy Hernandez did. Fluffy Hernandez beat 9 men in a row. If Fluffy Hernandez beat Sean Strickland, that would be 10 in a row. 10 is the biggest number in the history of the UFC that anybody's had to do to get a title shot, and that distinction belongs to Merab. But to remind you, Merab was offered a title fight after 7. So the point that I'm making, if Fluffy Hernandez would have won and he would have gotten a title, we're being very disrespectful to the 9 men that Fluffy beat. We're being very disrespectful to the opportunity that Fluffy should have had. And when you play this game, it's the ultimate poker hand. You're all in. Whatever you got is on the line. You got a belt, it's on the line. It doesn't matter if you're undefeated and this guy's lost 5 fights. It doesn't matter if you're ranked number 1 and he's ranked number 8. When you get in there, it's all on the line, winner take all. Sean Strickland took it. Sean Strickland.
Chael really goes after him on this point, breaking down exactly why this whole thing matters so much. But Chael Sonnen wasn't done talking about this situation yet. He went deeper into the bigger picture around this potential fight, discussing all the heavy consequences and long-term effects connected to this matchup and what it means for the entire division. Chael made this really important point about fairness in fighting. When you look at any fighter's climb to title contention, especially someone who's consistently put in the brutal work, taken all the physical risks and career dangers, and systematically beaten every single crucial opponent along their path, you have to understand something important. You're not just disrespecting or shortchanging that individual fighter when you deny them their earned title shot. What you're really doing, and this is the bigger problem, is accidentally undermining and cheapening every single opponent they've beaten, every challenge they had to overcome to reach that elite level of competition. Chael brought up this incredibly powerful example of long winning streaks in UFC history, showing step by step just how brutally difficult and remarkably rare it actually is in this absolutely ruthless sport to rack up so many straight wins against elite competition. His main point was completely obvious and logically bulletproof when you really consider the implications. When a real athlete fights in a high-stakes main event, truly risks something valuable like their ranking and reputation, and comes out as the clear winner through their skills, that hard-fought success absolutely has to mean something concrete and real in terms of title opportunities. In this specific situation, and this is why Chael feels so passionately, Sean Strickland dominated and won his most recent fight against serious competition. He put everything he'd worked for on the line, and because of that undeniable dominant showing that nobody can argue with, Chael strongly believes that Sean rightfully deserves and honestly should face Khamzat next with championship stakes.
Now, I do want to say, I was with Khamzat last week on the Jackson podcast, and Khamzat Chimaev told me that he is 240 pounds, right? What do you weigh right now, Khamzat? What do you weigh? Come on!
You can keep it a secret if you want.
I don't know.
That is gigantic. That is a good weight for a heavyweight, let alone a middleweight that fights at 185 pounds, 84 kilos. That would be a 55-pound weight cut that he has to go through. And by the way, he didn't look fat. He looked to be in really good shape, and he's down there in Newport Beach, California, training, running on the beach every single day. The man is working out hard, but there's no talks of a title fight. In fact, I asked him, who will you be fighting? And he said, brother, I don't know.
Sean absolutely has to get a real title shot, and when it comes to different takes on this whole thing, Michael Bisping, who's always brutally honest and never sugarcoats anything, also shared some really intense thoughts and opinions on this entire Sean versus Khamzat fight situation, and I can tell you with complete confidence he's absolutely all for making it happen. Bisping revealed during a recent podcast that he just had a direct conversation with Khamzat, and here's the absolute shocker that came out of that talk. Khamzat apparently is currently walking around at a massive 240 pounds, which is huge for a middleweight. Bisping correctly and strongly stressed exactly what a major serious factor that extreme weight is for a professional fighter who mainly competes at 185 pounds. Cutting that much weight isn't just physically hard or unpleasant. It's an absolutely enormous, punishing process that severely drains and beats up the whole body, hurting both performance and health. Now, Bisping did make sure to clarify that Khamzat isn't out of shape or getting lazy. Actually, he's currently training hard in Temecula, California, looking crisp and staying busy in the gym. But here's the tricky part, since there isn't a definite officially announced championship fight scheduled for Khamzat right now, and he currently holds the middleweight title but doesn't have a clear confirmed next challenger. Bisping strongly believes with total conviction that the top priority and focus absolutely has to stay on defending the championship belt that he already owns, rather than possibly, and too early, moving up to another weight class like light heavyweight and potentially creating even more uncertainty and chaos within the already messy middleweight division.
There certainly is some words, and Sean Strickland has beaten him before, beating via decision. The reality is, who deserves it more? I don't know. Sean's only on a 1-fight win streak, but he is a former champion. Imavov hasn't done that, right? The reality is, Chimaev has got to fight one of them. I know he's talking about going up to 205, or he's thinking about going up to 205, and making 185 from 240 pounds will be very hard, okay? But I would love to see him in there with Strickland, certainly when he says that he choked him out multiple times, and his lightweight training partner choked him out a bunch of times. And then you've got Strickland calling him a Chechen, and all this type of stuff, right? Talking a lot of shit, talking a lot of smack, not afraid to poke the bear, shall we say, right? That fight's got to happen. I want to see it. You want to see it. The whole world would love to see it, right? So I think he's got to stay at 185 pounds.
Bisping then dug deeper into the really complex situation involving Sean Strickland and the division's other serious top contenders, specifically mentioning an incredibly dangerous fighter like Nassourdine Imavov, who's been destroying competition. Bisping easily admitted that Imavov represents a truly dangerous and remarkably quick, skilled opponent with a thrilling style, a real threat to absolutely everyone fighting in that weight class right now. But, and this is the key counter-argument, he quickly and forcefully stressed the absolutely essential fact that Sean Strickland had previously faced and clearly beaten Imavov when they fought. This actual history led Bisping to ask a very straightforward, logical question to anyone doubting Sean's credentials, who really has the stronger, more legitimate case for a title shot right now. Bisping pointed out that while Sean is currently on a solid single-fight win streak after his recent victory, which is definitely a huge impressive achievement that can't be dismissed, he's also a former UFC champion, which adds enormous significant weight and credibility to his overall career record and achievements. Finally, and Bisping kept returning to this throughout his entire case, he repeatedly came back to his basic core argument, which stayed consistent throughout all of his reasoning on this subject. Khamzat absolutely must fight and face one of the world's elite middleweights in his next defense, and it's totally obvious that the Strickland fight is exactly what passionate fans and paying customers are begging to see happen, specifically because of their undeniable, publicly growing tension, the clear bad blood, and their real personal hatred for each other that makes this so captivating.
Is he the contender, do you think, next for the title in your mind that could potentially have the most challenge to Khamzat out of the possible contenders right now?
Oh, it's hard to say. Like, I definitely think he has an argument now, especially because he's beaten Imavov and because of the way he put away Fluffy. But honestly, it's anybody's guess. You know, it's anybody's guess. The title fights and like contenders and that whole conversation is just so random.
Robert Whitaker, another absolute legend and icon in the loaded middleweight division with tons of championship experience, got asked this question straight up. When directly asked whether Sean Strickland should become Khamzat's next official challenger for the title, Whitaker surprisingly didn't immediately shoot down the idea completely, which was significant coming from a former champion and fighter of his status and reputation. That's actually a pretty big endorsement when you think about it. Whitaker said he really believes Sean currently has a legitimately solid case for getting such a major high-profile championship fight, especially after his tactically brilliant and widely talked about victory over Imavov earlier in his career, and specifically considering how he decisively stopped Paulo Costa in his most recent bout with that dramatic finish. Those kinds of dominant showings and performances are exactly the type of statement-making efforts that grab widespread attention throughout the MMA world and earn real respect and recognition from peers. But, and Whitaker's being realistic here, he also fully gets and recognizes the sometimes harsh, frustrating reality that the UFC's championship matchmaking picture is often incredibly unpredictable and seemingly random, almost like rolling dice, and it absolutely isn't always or even usually determined purely by objective sporting merit, rankings, or who actually deserves what. Still, despite expressing that realistic concern about UFC politics, when looking only at Sean's recent impressive performances and his proven effective fighting approach and style, Robert Whitaker really feels that Sean has clearly positioned himself right in the heart of serious title contention and firmly in everyone's discussion.
You've been in there with Khamzat, man, and Sean Strickland's taking defense is pretty good, but we haven't seen him in there against, like, would you say Fluffy and Khamzat, it's two different levels when it comes to the grappling, would you say, like in terms of the way, the strength? And, yeah.
Absolute night and day. Like, having been in there with Chimaev and seen, and everyone who saw what he did to Drukas, like, it's not the same. It is not the same.
And as their detailed conversation naturally progressed to discuss the exact mechanics and dynamics of a possible fight between Sean and Khamzat, getting into the specific details of how that matchup would actually play out inside the octagon, Robert Whitaker definitely stuck to his experienced, well-informed take on the matter. He openly admitted and recognized that Sean's defensive wrestling and takedown defense is really legitimately solid and well-developed, representing a remarkable, high-level skill that's extremely effective for successfully dealing with the vast majority of opponents and challengers he's likely to encounter. However, and this is a crucial distinction that Whitaker wanted to make absolutely clear, he said with complete conviction and certainty that grappling with Khamzat Chimaev is a totally entirely different matter and challenge altogether. It represents a unique beast in the sport, a completely different level of challenge that operates and functions on a totally distinct level of reality compared to normal UFC level grappling, and Whitaker says this from deep, hard-earned, first-hand personal knowledge and experience. He has actually competed against Khamzat before in the octagon, having actually shared the cage with him and felt his pressure directly, so he truly, intimately knows exactly what it feels like to deal with that level of grappling dominance. Whitaker even directly talked about what Khamzat physically did to him during their fight, particularly describing some brutal takedowns, offering a vivid and somewhat disturbing account of Khamzat's supreme grappling mastery and overwhelming control. And he plainly bluntly stated that this is simply absolutely not the same caliber of grappling skill, nor even close to the same type of relentless physical pressure and bodily stress that Sean Strickland has ever faced or handled at any point during his long professional career until now.
Chimaev and Sean Strickland should be the next middleweight title shot in the division, and I'm going to tell you why in today's video. My name is James Lynch. So Sean Strickland getting a huge win last weekend at UFC Houston in the main event, taking out Anthony Fluffy Hernandez by knockout. It was a picture-perfect performance here from Strickland, getting the third round finish, stopping Hernandez and his 8-fight win streak, and solidified himself as a contender in the weight class. And right now, at the time we're talking, there is not a fight booked yet for Khamzat Chimaev. There's been a couple rumors out there, but you heard Strickland after his fight with Fluffy Hernandez. We'll play a little snippet of it here. He talks about what he wants next when Michael Bisping asks him, and Strickland doesn't hesitate, talks about Chimaev. We're going to watch that clip here real quick.
Next, Sean. I don't know, man. Chimaev probably gets off the bench here. I'd like a piece of that little Chechen. But you never know with him, bro.
Yeah, so you can see there, he wants this fight. And then to go even further, Strickland at his media scrum before, of course, he was cut off, which I'm not a fan of, talks about how he made Chimaev quit in training. Now, I'm not usually a fan of fighters revealing things in the gym. I think that's bad practice, but this is only going to build up the...
James Lynch, who's a well-respected, knowledgeable voice within the broader MMA media world and community, has been consistently arguing from the very beginning of this discussion that the upcoming crucially important middleweight title fight should absolutely, without question, be Khamzat versus Sean Strickland, period. Lynch specifically mentioned and highlighted Sean's totally dominant definitive knockout win over Anthony Hernandez in their recent fight, calling that exceptional performance and display a decisive turning point in Sean's career path. Looking at the current divisional landscape and picture, Lynch specifically noted that Sean effectively and dramatically ended a frustrating 8-fight losing streak against top competition, which represents an impressive comeback and return to elite form, and successfully achieving this amazing competitive feat in a crucial main event headliner spot greatly boosted his divisional standing and credibility. Also, and this contextual point is absolutely critical to understanding the timing, Khamzat currently has no fights whatsoever planned or scheduled at all, according to official UFC announcements, which puts his championship status in this uncertain waiting pattern and on indefinite hold. Lynch suggests it's completely obvious and clear that Sean moved quickly and strategically, immediately challenging Khamzat publicly right after securing his decisive victory, and since there really is no other clear, obvious number one contender waiting for the current 185-pound champion right now, all the factors and circumstances seem to be absolutely perfect for this fight. Lynch then went on to explore and analyze the interesting prospect and possibility of Khamzat potentially moving up to compete in the 205-pound light heavyweight division instead, pointing out the important fact that Khamzat only just recently won the middleweight championship for the first time. But amazingly, he hasn't had even a single chance to defend that title yet against anyone. In Lynch's strongly held view, which is a position shared by many traditional fans and analysts, the idea of planning an immediate jump to seek more success and glory in a completely different weight division before defending what you currently own is wrong. He strongly supported the idea of keeping Khamzat strictly at the 185-pound division, making absolutely certain he stays active and consistently builds and solidifies his real championship legacy there first. Lynch observed and called out the widespread double standard that exists in MMA talk, stressing how quickly and harshly people and fans often brutally criticize and attack other champions for their perceived inactivity or lack of defenses. And then he asked very reasonably and logically, why should the rules be any different here? Following Lynch's convincing, well-reasoned arguments about merit and timing, Brendan Schaub, another key media personality with major industry influence, clearly and without question stated that the UFC must, without any delay whatsoever, officially book and schedule the Khamzat vs. Sean Strickland fight next, as the immediate title defense. Schaub quickly dismissed the idea of Imavov getting a title shot right now, arguing convincingly that Sean already decisively beat him in their previous fight, and crucially, perhaps most importantly, from a business perspective, Sean Strickland remains the significantly bigger star and attraction, which is a crucial element in the commercial fighting business and promotion. Schaub forcefully said that the UFC desperately requires and needs marketable stars, especially American ones, for strong pay-per-view sales numbers and mainstream attention and buzz, and this specific matchup is completely ready to go and can happen right away without any complications. He confidently stated that Sean would immediately, without hesitation, accept and welcome the fight if offered, noting factually that Sean came out of the Hernandez fight nearly completely untouched and unmarked, in perfect physical condition and excellent health to quickly return to action. Schaub took his argument even further, boldly predicting and forecasting that if Sean were to actually beat Khamzat in this potential matchup, the UFC would suddenly have an absolutely massive American star on their hands. Sean is exactly genuinely his real unfiltered self at all times, never putting on an act, and he powerfully shut down all of his critics and doubters with his recent performance, looking sharper, seemed more focused, and clearly better in his technique than he has in quite some time. Right now, Khamzat holds the significant role of reigning middleweight champion, but here's the deal, he has no clear, settled, officially announced next opponent lined up at this moment. The compelling story for this clash between these two is already completely built through their public interactions and history. The real bad blood between these two fighters is obvious, genuine, and definitely not fake for promotional purposes. It's authentic hatred. The sharp difference in their contrasting fighting styles is totally fascinating from a technical standpoint, and truly significant in every analytical way you can think of. Sean's constant forward pressure and his crisp, effective jab work against Khamzat's superior dominant grappling skill and pure physical strength presents a serious, real challenge for both elite competitors that makes this incredible. Looking at this from both a pure athletic competitive standpoint and also a smart commercial business perspective, this fight is completely logical and makes total sense at this exact moment in time. If there's any major delay in booking this fight, the intense hype and obvious fan excitement will definitely fade and disappear over time. But if you set it up next, right now, without delay, it feels absolutely essential and necessary. This is what makes this thrilling, crazy sport so amazing. When things line up with this much perfect logic and timing, you simply cannot and shouldn't overthink it. You just book the fight officially, and you let these two warriors step inside the octagon and settle this rivalry once and for all. Both of these incredible athletes stand firmly, steadily in their absolute confidence and self-belief, both truly own and believe with every single fiber of their being that they are and stand as the very best middleweight on the planet. There is absolutely completely no real need to mess with or complicate this ideal perfect situation with more unnecessary fights or pointless delays and postponements. Fans are genuinely excited, desperately starving for resolution and clarity in the middleweight division, and this specific fight provides exactly that. The real question is, can Sean withstand and survive Khamzat's grappling for 5 full championship rounds? And on the flip side, will Khamzat successfully handle Sean's relentless pace, constant pressure, and volume striking for all 5 complete title rounds? That people is exactly precisely why this fight matters so deeply and why everyone's discussing it. Now tell us in the comments section below who you really believe wins in this potential matchup.